Good morning. In today's video, I'll talk of the military aspects of Operation Sindoor only. Now, the first thing is, what was the objective of this operation of the two sides? Why they launched the operation? And that is very clear from the name that the two sides gave to their operation. The Indian side called it Operation Sindoor, so it was a revenge operation of the Sindoor lost of the Hindu women in Pahalgaon. Therefore, on the night of 6/7, the Indian Air Force fighters, without breaching Pakistan airspace, they launched precision standoff missiles at 9 targets in Pakistan and Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and the targets were non-military. They were terrorist camps and terrorist launch pads. Thereafter, the Indian side said that we want to exercise restraint, both sides should do it, implying that India wanted to end the operation. Their objective had been met. Now, on the Pakistan side, they called their operation Operation Bunyane Marsoos, which translated means unbreakable wall. That means they will not allow their wall or their sovereignty to be breached. Therefore, on the 6th, 7th night, the Pakistan Air Force waited for the Indian Air Force to breach the sovereignty of Pakistan by firing their missiles. And thereafter, the two air forces, they had a brief encounter without either side fighters crossing each other's airspace. And the next day, the Pakistan military announced that what they did the previous night was basically a response to the aggression of the Indian side, and now they will do their response, because they called the first action defensive action, and now their response, which was Operation Bunyane Marsoos, because Pakistan's sovereignty had been breached, and therefore they used military power to hit military targets on the Indian side. And because military targets were hit on the Indian side, the response had to come, retaliation. And therefore, both sides continued for the next 3 days, and a new normal in a crisis situation was created. Why crisis? I'll just explain in a while. And what was this new normal? The new normal was that both sides now would be using the loitering munition, the drones, the rockets, the missiles freely, causing ample destruction to lives and property on both sides, all along the border. And the normal used to be that whenever there was a crisis between India and Pakistan, everything used to be restricted to the line of control, where we would see heightened activity of small arms firing and at worst use of artillery by the both sides. So a new normal has got created. The point to make is, if you analyze Operation Sindoor, it had very clear two components, two parts. One was what happened on the night of 6th, 7th, the encounter of the two air forces. This is a clear indication that in case of a hot war between India and Pakistan, it is the two air forces which will lead their respective campaigns. And the second part was that in a crisis situation, a new normal got created. I have already explained the new normal. Now, Prime Minister Modi, once, because both sides were very keen to end this operation, after that, Prime Minister Modi addressed the nation, and he made 4 policy statements, or rather he said 4 things. One, he said that Operation Sindoor has paused, it has not ended. Second, he said a new normal has been created, which is what I explained what it is. And the third, he did not say it, but on his behalf the government said that any act of terror will be considered an act of war. And what he said, the last thing was, nuclear blackmail did not work, implying an Operation Sindoor. Let's put all these four things in a context. What this means is that if, let's say, there is another attack, a terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir or anywhere in India, then India would respond. This is what the Prime Minister has said. So if India responds, that means the new normal gets activated immediately. Both sides will adhere to the new normal. Now, what the new normal has done is that it has basically brought the threshold of war dangerously low. Because after the new normal, the next stage is pre-war stage, where both the militaries will mobilize for war. As we know, given the elongated geography of Pakistan, their army mobilization will be faster, and they can do it sufficiently surreptitiously as well than the Indian side, given its geography, because our forces are all over central India. And the next will be the hot war, the final stage. Therefore, now that the operations have paused, and the next step will be new normal and a likely war, hot war, because that gap between the two now has shortened. So I am not talking of the Indian side, but let's see what will be happening on the Pakistan side, and that is what is interesting, and that is what needs to be analyzed. As we have seen in this Operation Sindoor, the Indian side was not fighting with the Pakistan side alone, it was fighting with the combination or the working together of India and China, without China showing its hand. What I have been calling since 2019, that India should prepare for a one front reinforced war. So we saw that scenario unfold. Therefore, what will happen is China will help Pakistan with hardware. And what all hardware is, let's see in the pipeline. We know that Pakistan Air Force is to get, because I said the Air Forces will be the lead in war, in the hot war. Pakistan Air Force has already got J-10. They were to get 40 J-10. The full numbers haven't come yet. So obviously the Chinese side will hasten this. Next is, China already has 2 5th generation aircrafts in its inventory, and it is downgrading the J-10s, which means it will be able to give more J-10s now to Pakistan Air Force. And the 2 aircraft that the Chinese have in their inventory are J-20 and J-35. The export version of J-35 is J-31. And J-31, the Pakistan side has already asked for 40 numbers of this aircraft. And this happened when last month the Pakistan Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Zahir Babbar Sidhu, was in China, and he met up with the Chinese defense minister. So China will hasten this. Next, already in the pipeline is KJ-500 airborne early warning and control aircraft. We saw they were very useful in this campaign Operation Sindoor in the crisis situation, so they'll again get hastened up. Then they already have CM-400 anti-ship missile. Now this is an anti-ship missile with the peculiarity that it takes a ballistic arc, and they claim that we used it against India's BrahMos. So they'll get more of this number. Now very important is that we know that the Chinese have what is called FK-400 mobile air defense system. Now this can fire high powered microwave weapons. It takes the war to another level. The utility of microwave weapons is that they can sweep an area, which means they are most effective against small drones and small loitering munitions. So perhaps the Chinese side will give them that. Then we saw that the extensive use of drones by the Pakistan Air Force or the Pakistan Armed Forces in Sindoor, and we know that the Turkey gave them and Chinese gave them, and we know China has a huge inventory of drones, and the lesson of the Ukraine war is that it is very easy to convert commercial drone for military use, and China's DJI company is the number one in producing commercial drones in the world. So the point to make is that now the Pakistani side will be building up their capabilities and waiting for the Indian side to initiate the new normal. Now, because they have so many capabilities, they have already enhanced their doctrine or come up with a new doctrine to optimize the capabilities, and the doctrine is called multi-domain operations. As I said, on the Pakistan side, they have an advantage of the pre-war situation. Given their elongated geography, they can mobilize faster than the Indian side. So what we are looking at least during the tenure of Prime Minister Modi, both the countries living dangerously and at the edge of war. Now I want to talk a bit about the nuclear blackmail that Prime Minister Modi spoke about, that nuclear blackmail will not work. Now you see, this whole talk of nuclear blackmail does not make sense at all for two reasons. In any case, on the Indian side, when the Director General Air Marshal Bharti was asked a question, he said that we never hit the nuclear installations, the Kirana Hills in Pakistan, which are close to Sargodha. We never did that. Now coming to this nuclear blackmail business, you know, it's a wrong assumption, repeatedly said both by the Indian side and as well as the Westerners and the Americans, that India's conventional capabilities are far superior to the conventional capabilities of Pakistan. Why I say that is for two reasons. Reason number one is that the military line that was created after the first war of Kashmir on 1st of January 49, despite all the other wars that the two sides have fought, it still remains with a different name, which is line of control in the western sector. In fact, during the 1971 war, General Manekshaw had given very clear instructions to General Candith, who was our commander on the western front, to hold that line, because India wanted to focus on East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh, which was a different case altogether. In fact, the late CDS Bipin Rawat, he also spoke about this, he called this a two-front war, that we want and he gave the example of the 71 war, that we fought one front, the other front was to be held. See, the point to make is that Indian military never had the capability to obliterate that line. That means at the conventional level of war, the two militaries were always matched. And the second point is that if indeed India had superior conventional capabilities, Pakistan would not have continued with 34 years of regular, persistent proxy war that it has done. So obviously in their thinking, they were not deterred because India did not have that capability, and now the situation has changed. Why it has changed is because now China is also in the equation. So this whole business of nuclear blackmail does not make sense at all. So this is, I thought I must share the military aspects. In my next video, I'll talk about the foreign policy aspects of Operation Sindoor. Thank you for